Society with your host, David Malmo-Levine.
We want people to come here and grow pot. We want people to come here and live here and experience the pot experience, and we want them to recreate British Columbia in marijuana's image.
Instead of a church in every town, you've got a McDonald's, and that's taken over as really the thing that we worship and the places that we make pilgrimage to.
Hello and welcome to the show. Right from the very start, Big Life has taken a keen interest in the subject of marijuana legislation. I mean, our entire second episode was devoted to pot. Last year, we hired pot activist David Malmo-Levine to cover one particular aspect of the federal election, and so on and so forth. So, what have we learned over the last 2.5 years?
There's nothing wrong with this plant. There's not a single thing wrong with marijuana.
When I come back to Toronto, I really remember that paranoia that I used to have when I'd want to smoke a joint and realize that I could go to jail for this.
Hey, dude, did anybody tell you might get arrested there?
Well, in Amsterdam, Cougar here, they've been somewhat lenient over the past year.
So, David, they finally arrested you. How was jail?
It sucked.
That the kind of social consumption of marijuana is something that should be decriminalized.
Oh, man, I am so high up. I can almost see the day from here when they'll finally decriminalize marijuana. I mean, ever since Ross Robiliati took the gold out of Acapulco and put it round his neck, the whole debate surrounding dope seems to have become silly and irrelevant. But before Ross, there was already momentum, both here and abroad. And so, on Big Life's West Coast visit, we decided to survey the scene to find out when exactly Canada's cannabis laws might change and what it would take for that to happen.
You gotta open up the cafes. You gotta open up your own hemp stores. You gotta do things as if reason was working and the experts were listened to and the public opinion polls were respected, and let the politicians play catch up.
We're ready to go to court, but it's not just going to be any old court case. It's going to be, a Supreme Court case, and it's going to be a constitutional challenge, and we're going to nationally reform the laws.
The day that I did get charged was the beginning of a great process for me of enlightenment. It brought me out, and I no longer hide.
If we decriminalized and allowed people to have a small amount for personal consumption, grow a little bit at home, again for personal consumption, then that would immediately take the profit out of the industry, and where there's no profit, organized crime doesn't want to go.
It seems to me that in this country, as in England and other places, there is a certain amount of momentum building as we see newspapers run series of pro-legislation or decriminalization essays, and there are protests in the streets of London and this sort of thing, but very little organization. How is the networking and organization for this cause in Canada right now?
Well, actually, probably the movement is more organized than ever has been before, and one of the primary reasons that's the internet. Now people all over the world can exchange a rapidly growing amount of information very quickly, and emails can be done to politicians, and certainly newspapers can get letters to the editor sent by email. So now you've seen a really exponential increase in the amount of activity done to legalize marijuana, and this crosses border. And then in the opposite camp, there are no prohibitionist websites. I mean, there's nobody in favor of the war on drugs has any kind of presence on the internet. So that's the one area where the legalization forces have a virtual dominance. There's actually no opposition to pro-legalization pieces in the internet, and that's really had a substantial impact on students, because students are doing projects on drugs, on journalists who want to research the material available on legalization. They're going to an area where it's biased so heavily in our favor, and that's having a very telling impact. You see, the thing is, there's a pro-legalization voice in every media now, in every segment, every school, every institution has a pro-legalization position. From police departments, you'll find police in favor of legalization. What you don't find is you don't find anybody willing to work hard in Parliament for that.
politicians responded to the opinion polls that Angus Reid takes or Health Canada takes, then we would have had decriminalization back in 1994 and cafes last year. That's a democracy, but we don't have one of those here. So what we have instead is little opportunities for reason to prevail in giant oceans of irrationality and interest.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
I probably not gonna bring anything except for talk.
Why do you